Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have had so much fun trying out all of the features like Q&As and polls that let us be really creative and engage with our audience. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
Welcome to episode 53 of Podcast Royal, where we discuss Andrew heading to court and being stripped of his HRH, Harry's fight for police protection, and the Queen's return to Sandringham to honor her father's death and her becoming queen 70 years later. Plus, we've got royal expert Penny Junor on the show to discuss Charles as king, all right here on episode 53. Welcome back to episode 53 of Podcast Royal. How are you, my friend? And how was your birthday?
Hey, thank you. I am doing great. Had a great birthday weekend. My sister was in town and took her to a couple of new places, and we ate lots of great local food. So it was really, really fun.
Good. Well, Jessica had a birthday this past weekend, and I get to see you tomorrow to celebrate it. So I'm very excited about that.
Me too. I am really looking forward to it. And our listeners know we like to get together regularly. So
It's such a blessing. Love
it really is.
What are you into this week other than being a beautiful new age?
I'm having a hard time trying to decide what I'm into this week. I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm into so much. One thing I'm into, so I broke down and got an Apple Watch recently.
Good. Okay.
And it's been really fun. So I'm sure listeners probably, I feel like so many people have these, and I really didn't know that I wanted one, honestly. But it's super cool. I've been able to kind of keep up with activity levels every day. So it's got these cool little things where you can go in and set your workout, and it'll track, calories burned. It's also got a little reminder during the day. When we work, we tend to get so focused on the work, and it'll buzz and say, it's time for you to stand up and move around. And so I'm loving the little reminders. I know they've got other versions out there. If you're not an Apple person, they've got, the Fitbits. I think Amazon has a version too. So there are lots of different options out there, but it's been really, really fun to kind of keep up with my workouts and remind myself when I need to get up and walk around during the day.
I need that because I'll catch myself, like it'll be hours and I'll just be sitting at my desk.
Mm-hmm.
And I, now that I work in an office, I don't move as much as I did. Like I don't get to go to my backyard like I did when I was working from home. And so I need some kind of reminder like that to get up and like take a walk. Cause obviously I've got a lot of places I could walk to. We've got a huge building. I'm on the 12th floor, for crying out loud, but I'll get in the zone, and then I'll like come back to reality, and it's been 3 or 4 hours, and that's just, that's too much time to be sedentary.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I like about it is, your phone also, there's an app where it'll track steps, but you have to be carrying your phone. So I like the watch because it's on you all day, and you can check in and see how many steps you've gotten, so you can know, if you need to get up and move around. So really kind of a fun little feature for anyone who's into tech gadgets. So what are you into?
Well, I am into this if only I lived in Chicago or Los Angeles. So I would be the first in line if I lived in either of those places for photographer Anwar Hussein's exhibit Princess Diana Accredited Access, which takes 140 of Hussein's images of the late Princess of Wales from 1980 to her death in 1997 and displays them in a walkthrough documentary. Seriously, if you live in Chicago and LA, please go to this, someone, listeners, and let us know how it is. So it's in Chicago and LA right now. New York City is up next, and tickets are available at princessdianaexhibit.com. I don't live close enough to any of those three places to make, like, if it were in Atlanta or New Orleans or Nashville, I would make the trip, but I just don't live close enough to any of those places to make it make sense. So, listeners, please report back if you are in. It's currently in Chicago and LA, soon to be New York City. Again, princessdianaexhibit.com. So, Anwar is the father of Samir Hussein, who is also a royal photographer that I adore. So, I would like to put it out in the universe to make this exhibit's way down south. I will, like I said, I will drive to Atlanta. I will drive to New Orleans, Nashville, anywhere I need to go to see this in person because from what I've seen, it looks incredible.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
I know it's just not close. I would drive to Charlotte, North. I would drive to Florida. There's many places I would drive. So just putting that out there in the universe. And also, I am raising a glass to Princess Charlene of Monaco. Today is her 44th birthday. So happy birthday and all of our well wishes, Your Royal Highness.
Yes,
44.
happy birthday. Awesome.
Yes. And today is Tuesday, January 25th. So
You know,
happy birthday.
I just have to say, January is quite the royal birthday month, isn't it?
Including you,
I
the
know.
Royal Highness of the podcast.
I'm glad to be included in there with all the princesses.
Well, I get to share a birthday month with Harry, so there's that for what it's
Okay, you
worth.
got that. Yeah, pretty cool.
Okay, so we're going to merge into the Royal Rundown, and we've got 2 weeks worth of news to catch up on. And big royal news tends to drop on Wednesdays, a fact I never knew until we hosted a podcast about royal news that comes out on Wednesdays. So, Wednesday, after, or the same day rather, that we released our last episode, we learned that Prince Andrew is headed to trial sometime between September and December of this year after Judge Lewis Kaplan refused to dismiss the sexual assault lawsuit leveraged against him by Virginia Giuffre. Judge Kaplan of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, which I believe is the same uh, district that is in Billions, which is will be lost on anyone that doesn't watch that show on Showtime, but I love that show. He refused to grant Andrew's motion to dismiss, writing in the opinion, Ms. Giuffre's complaint is neither unintelligible nor vague nor ambiguous. It alleges discrete incidents of sexual abuse in particular circumstances at three identifiable locations. It identifies to whom it attributes that sexual abuse. So, as for Buckingham Palace, they originally said no comment about this, saying we would not comment on what is an ongoing legal matter. But then, of course, they released a statement that was pretty groundbreaking. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But I want to ask you what your thoughts are on Andrew headed to trial.
You know, I feel like we've heard a lot of people talk about this over the past week, of course. And I think I feel like I've heard a lot of different perspectives, different takes. But it seems like she is really pursuing this as a voice and example for other women who have been victims of abuse. I think she's seems like she's trying to teach women not to be afraid to call out their abusers and hold them accountable. A lot of people are claiming, she doesn't really need Prince Andrew's money. She's already financially well off. I mean, I don't know who wouldn't turn down a few extra million if they had the opportunity to win a lawsuit. But it seems like she's going to stick to her guns and follow through on this. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I have more thoughts about the next segment we'll talk about, but I think that obviously this should legitimize Jufrey's claims right here, as if they weren't legitimized already. In my mind, in my heart, they were already legitimate claims. But the
Mhm.
fact that a judge has agreed that this should go to trial, should any naysayers at this point should be null and void. I mean, there's grounds here. You don't just go to court without grounds. And so it will be very awkward and very interesting to see how this plays out. I wonder how this will work. I can't imagine a world in which the trial will be televised. But will we get daily snippets? Will press be allowed? How's this going to work? It is in the U.S., so there's.
Well, so
Go
this
ahead.
is, and this is with my limited legal knowledge, but it's different from the Ghislaine Maxwell trial because hers was actually like a criminal
Yeah, hers is
lawsuit
criminal.
where this is a civil lawsuit. So
That's a
I,
good
I
point.
don't know. I don't know how that differs as far as people being able to go in the courtroom and provide updates. But we did see a lot of these, like, what were they called? Like civil reporters with Ghislaine Maxwell who were giving updates on Instagram every day. And that was really interesting to follow along with her trial. So I'm not sure if this one will be different, but essentially it looks like he's not really up for jail time, but I guess he could be on the hook for some money and who knows what else from her, whatever she demands.
So this is random, but you're gonna laugh at this, Jessica. But I really follow. And I was way too young to be following this, but I did. So judge me if you will. But I really followed the O.J. Simpson trial in the '90s. I was
I
like,
remember that too. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't follow it closely, but we were young, but I still remember it pretty vividly.
yeah. I mean, it was hard. It was everywhere, so it was hard to escape. But you know, obviously he had a criminal trial. He was found not guilty, but then he had a civil trial a couple of years later, and he was found liable and was remanded to pay X amount of millions of dollars that I don't think he's ever paid. The number 33 enters my mind. I don't think he's paid much, if any of that. But so that's, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a huge difference between a criminal trial, which this is not, and a civil trial, which this is. And so, yeah, if found guilty, he'll probably pay money. He's not facing jail time, but I don't know. I don't know how that will work. Like if how much we will know, how long it will take. Um, it will be interesting to see it play out. But obviously, there is, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's something here, and it's going to trial. So then the next day, Buckingham Palace released the following statement saying, with the Queen's approval and agreement, the Duke of York's military affiliations and royal patronages have been returned to the Queen. The Duke of York will continue not to undertake any public duties and is defending this case as a private citizen, which I think is a very strong point to realize that the Queen is not paying for this. He is paying for this on his own. Back to well, that's the end of the statement. But he will likely retain his Duke of York title. I read, and he will keep his place as ninth in the line of succession. He will no longer be called His Royal Highness. So I think the Queen did the right thing. I think it took her long enough, but she did the right thing. What do you think?
Yeah, of course. I think she did also. I honestly imagine it was kind of a hard reality for her to face and something that she probably really wanted to pretend wasn't true. I mean, sometimes ignorance feels like bliss. We know eventually if you don't address it, it's going to catch up with you. And I think she kind of got to that point where it was like, I really don't want this to be true. I don't want this to be a reality, but I've got to deal with it. And I imagine Prince Charles and Prince William really both pushed for this. I sort of, I can see Charles having a heart-to-heart conversation with her and really explaining, you know why it's so important to come out with a statement like this. I feel like she walks a very tough line here between being a mom and a monarch. And I think it was difficult to do, but I think it was something she had to do, and I think she made the right choice.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, kind of like with all of us, you can't deny that there's a there, if that makes any sense. There's something there when a judge takes it to trial, especially when there's a
Mhm.
motion to dismiss. So she can't deny anymore that this is going to happen. He is
Right.
going to trial. And to wait any longer, especially as we get into February and her 70-year anniversary on the throne, and then the Platinum Jubilee this summer, this year really is supposed to be her year. And I think she had to make that swift decision to end Andrew's royal career officially so that hopefully she can get some joy out of 2022 before the case ultimately does go to trial later this year.
Well, so let me ask you this. If for some reason, he goes to trial and let's say he loses his case, do you think that she should also strip him of his Duke of York title, or that she would? And do you think he would be removed from the line of succession, or do you think that will all remain in place?
That's a fantastic question. And gosh, I haven't thought about that. That's such a good question. Um, I say yes, take it all away. Take him out of the line of succession. He's never going to be king,
Mhm.
but take his title away. He's already taken the HRH is already gone. The patronages are gone. The military affiliations are gone. Yeah, I'll say yes. If he is found guilty, take it all away. Take
Yeah,
it
so
all.
that's another interesting kind of aspect to all of this, where it's the difference between a criminal case and a civil case. I certainly think if it was a criminal trial and he was found guilty, I would be shocked if they didn't, remove him from the line of succession and strip him of that Duke of York title. With it being a civil case, I honestly don't know. I don't know what they'll do or how they'll handle it, based on the outcome of the case. I think that will also be interesting to see.
Well, here's the thing. They can't ever take away his prince title. That's a birthright. Okay.
Right.
Like you can't, that he will always be Prince Andrew, but you can take away the Duke of York title. And it makes me sad because I can't remember who I was speaking to about this, but the Duke of York title in particular, that was her father's title. And that is the title that means so much to the Queen. And so to have it marred, because the Duke of York, we've known Andrew as the Duke of York for 35, almost 36 years. And I know that because he was named Duke of York in 1986 when he got married. And that's the year I was born. So, as old as I am, that's how long Andrew has been Duke of York. And now the title that her father worked so diligently as Duke of York, it has been marred so much by Andrew and these scandals. And, we've heard it said many times. And in fact, I think in our interview with Penny Junor in a little bit, she'll say it herself that Andrew was the favorite son. And now for it to turn out like this, I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but it's got to be devastating. But also, you said it, she's got to walk that line between being a mother and a monarch. And as a monarch, if he is found guilty, yes, it is a civil case, it's not a criminal case, but guilty is guilty in this situation, and I think it should go.
Yeah. Well,
But I
we'll
hadn't
definitely.
thought about that yet. So, God, this is so awkward. So, speaking of Andrew, I have a what the royal for you. We haven't done one of those in a while, but this one is markedly not funny. So, Andrew's former maid told The Sun that she was forced to spend, this is so bizarre, spend an hour every day arranging his collection of 72 teddy bears from around the world, many of them dressed in sailor outfits, on his bed and around his room. An hour every day? Like, come on. I could think of many other things that one could do with their time for an hour every day. So, Charlotte Briggs worked at Buckingham Palace in the 1990s and said, as soon as I got the job, I was told about the teddies. This is just this I'm reading this and I feel like I'm living someone else's life. Like, what is this? And back to her, and it was drilled into me how he wanted them. I even had a day's training. Can you imagine going to a day-long training on how to arrange Prince Andrew's teddy bears? But anyway, everything had to be just right. It was so peculiar. So Charlotte would daily arrange the teddy bears. Again, I can't even believe these words are coming out of my mouth. So that the biggest teddy bears were in the back, then placed in order of size with the smallest at the front. And at night, she and another maid would use a diagram, a literal diagram, to place the teddy bears around the room properly. So yeah, like I've never said it before, what the freaking royal. Like, I would love to know your thoughts on this. That's a whole other level of creepy.
Well, I do think it's a little funny and obviously a little odd. I mean, it's okay. So here's my question. This was when he was married, right?
The 90s, he got, well, they were separated in 92 and divorced in 96. But yeah, I mean,
But I mean, he was an adult. Like
oh
he
yeah,
was
grown man.
so that's I don't know what to say about that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Um, yeah. And, I don't, I heard another story that I'm not going to say on the show today that's much more explicit and much more graphic and sexual than that. And like, this just it keeps devolving into something weirder and weirder and weirder. And the wheels just keep falling off the station wagon, I'm telling you. And so I just, God,
Well,
what a week with
it
Andrew.
makes you think, I guess there are like nothing's off limits when it comes to what the royals can ask their maids to do, right?
Can you imagine your life as you look at, you're in Buckingham Palace, it's so fancy, and you're looking at a diagram of teddy bears dressed as sailors from around the world, and you're going, what is my life? Like, what is, and I mean, talk about Andrew having obviously too much time on his hands to care about just, okay. God bless it. So, anyway, can we move on from Andrew now?
Let's move on.
Moving on. So, okay, Prince Harry is seeking judicial review against a decision preventing him from personally funding police protection for himself and his family while at home in the UK. So, this comes after Harry's security was compromised during his return to the UK in July for the Diana statue unveiling, where, after leaving a charity event, his car was chased by paparazzi because of a lack of police protection. In a statement from a legal spokesperson, for Harry, it was explained that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex personally fund a private security team for their family, yet that security cannot replicate the necessary police protection needed while in the UK. In the absence of such protection, Prince Harry and his family are unable to return to his home. The goal for Prince Harry has been simple: to ensure the safety of himself and his family while in the UK so his children can know his home country. The statement continued, with the lack of police protection comes too great a personal risk. Prince Harry hopes that his petition, after close to 2 years of pleas for security in the UK, will resolve this situation. So, okay, I have questions. So, I don't understand why Harry can't pay for his own police protection. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. So, this doesn't make a
Yeah.
whole lot of sense to me.
So I'm trying to make sure I understand this. I saw these headlines come out last week and heard a little bit about it, but I don't know that I have full clarity around the situation. So, um, is he not able to have his own security from the US travel with him to the UK?
Okay, that is what I don't understand, because I'm rereading this line from the legal spokesperson, and it says the Duke and Duchess of Sussex personally fund a private security team for their family, yet that security cannot replicate the necessary police protection needed
So
while in the UK.
it sounds like what they're saying is they don't feel like their private security team is as equipped as what UK security could offer them, basically, right? Like the security
Yeah.
the royal family would use. So I mean, again, like we're not in the UK. I don't understand all of the laws around this. I'm wondering if there's some kind of law in place preventing, him from being able to access like a true government police force there. I don't know. It seems like there would be some type of private security he could purchase there, that wouldn't be like a government police force. I'm not really sure. That's what it seems like to me. Like maybe he's asking to pay for the same type of security that the royal family has, and maybe they're saying, well, you're not a citizen here, you're not part of the government, whether that's a political figure or a royal or whatever anymore. So you can't use this security. I'm not sure. That's what it sounds like to me, where I think there's the holdup. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I don't know, but he's not residing in the UK anymore. I would imagine, he probably isn't a tax-paying citizen there anymore. I'm not really sure if that matters, if he's willing to pay out of pocket for that. Um, but I definitely, this is something that I don't have a lot of understanding around. So I feel like it's really hard to comment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's something that, like, a piece of the story that we're missing, because from where I sit, if he's offering to privately fund it, if he's offering to pay for it, I don't understand why that wouldn't be okay. But I feel like there's something there that we're not understanding, and I don't know why his security team isn't enough, but
Mhm.
obviously, I deeply want Harry and Meghan and Archie and Lily to be able to come back to the UK.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know for sure, but I'm taking this as an indication that maybe Megan and the kids will likely stay in the US during the Platinum Jubilee. I honestly, at this point, I would be really surprised to see them over there. I know we've talked about it a lot and we thought that might be the time they would come back, but I feel like this is another um wrench in those plans. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Lily's first birthday falls right in the middle of the Platinum Jubilee, which is the 2nd through the 5th of June. Her birthday is the 4th. So that
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything. I mean, how fun would it be actually to have Lilibet, the queen, and Lily celebrate together? But I mean, if this isn't resolved, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
hopefully there's some understanding can that can come. By the way, you know how I've been called a sugar for loving Megan. Um, I can say this because I'm addicted to Wordle. Do you Wordle yet?
No, I've been hearing a lot about it, but
Oh
I
my
don't.
gosh. Okay, well I can say this because this episode doesn't come out until tomorrow. Today's Wordle was sugar, and I laughed because I've been called a sugar because I defend Megan too much apparently. Whatever. I just say how I feel. So if that's being a sugar, then what, call me a sugar all you want. But I laughed today because and listeners who Wordle will appreciate that, because today is Tuesday and the word was sugar, and I got it in, I think, 5 or 6, I can't remember. But you should start wordling, by the way. You'll get addicted to it. So
Yeah, I'll have to. I've been hearing so much about it. I'll have to check it out.
anyway, okay, so here's an instance where I'm not a sugar. I think it's ridiculous that we don't have any more actual audio content. Apparently so does Spotify, is what I'm hearing. But speaking of royal podcasting, maybe this podcast will take off at a faster clip. Eugenie is launching a podcast with her friend Julia de Boinville. I probably butchered that, for her anti slavery charity, the Anti Slavery Collective, which she launched in 2017 to combat modern slavery and trafficking. In a monthly newsletter, the two were pictured recording on a white couch with the message, "We were so excited to begin recording our long awaited podcast this year, due to be released in 2022. So stay tuned." By the way, it looks like they are at Frogmore, at Eugenie's house, which is Frogmore. So big question. Do you think this podcast will drop more episodes than Archewell Audio? So what I'm saying is, do you think this podcast will have 2 episodes?
Well, that won't be difficult to do, and I do think if this was an opportunity for us to place a bet and win some money, I think I know which way I would go. But you know what I do think is really interesting? I think it's interesting that Princess Eugenie is hosting a podcast on trafficking given her father's current situation. Um,
Yeah,
I
understatement
wonder,
of the year.
do you think that's strategic at all?
It's either strategic or it's really stupid. Like it's like either it's strategic or really not well thought out.
Yeah, I was, yeah, I don't know. I had some thoughts on that. It'll be interesting to see, kind of what they cover on this, but that was what stuck out to me, along with the Archwell audio comment.
Seriously, at what
I'll
point
bet they'll have more than one episode.
if you're Spotify are you like, "Hey, pay us back," or I don't know if they've been paid.
Right.
Like I don't know the inner workings of the Sussex's bank account, but like at what point if you're Spotify are you like, okay, we've given you a year plus now. Like I
Well,
really had high hopes that there would be an episode around the 1 year mark of our last episode.
so
And
I
nothing.
think, I think given who they are, they definitely had the ability to go longer than most podcasters between episodes, and not really lose traction there. People wouldn't lose interest, but after this long, I think people are just kind of over it. I think it's like, I mean, if they come out with something at this point, do we even really care anymore?
Right, right. I just that look, we're podcasters. We're not. We didn't sign a multi-million-dollar deal with Spotify. Although if Spotify wants to change that, we'd happily oblige. But like, we know the work it takes, and like, you just don't enter into something lightly for that much money and not produce. Like, it's just I'm conflicted because we hear all the time that Megan's such a workhorse. She's so demanding, but then where's the product? I don't know. That I don't
Yeah,
even
it
want to
was
talk
clear
about
there
that.
wasn't a strategy in place there with that. I feel like, I'm not sure how that went. I'm sure the pitch sounded great, but it's really fallen flat. And I'd be curious to know what the conversations are over at Spotify, and kind of, how they feel about that.
Well, we're hating on Megan. So is everybody else, but people are profiting from this apparently. So we have more disturbing news from Bot Sentinel, who released their third and final report, finding that a network of YouTube channels focused on trashing the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but especially Meghan, has over 497 million views and an estimated $3.48 million in total YouTube earnings. That's wow. This third report focuses on how single purpose hate accounts have turned targeted harassment and coordinated hate campaigns into a lucrative hate for profit enterprise. $3.5 million. How is that even possible to earn that much money on that's unbelievable.
It's really crazy how people make so much money in these unethical ways, and we've seen this on a lot of levels, even outside of, hate campaigns. But, there is this saying that comes to mind. What is it? There's no bad publicity. I mean, do you think that's true? I would be curious to know what the royals think about that. But, you know, as unfortunate as it is to have these hate campaigns out there, I sort of feel like they profit on both sides, right? Like your publicity definitely goes up, whether it's for reasons you want or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why you're able to get that kind of a Spotify deal, for
Right.
example, to harp on this some more,
People will
because
come in.
you do elicit such a response from people, whether they adore you or they can't stand you. So,
Mhm.
but what, like, I don't ever want to be that person that is a millionaire because I have a hate account, whether it's about Meghan or
Right.
Harry or anybody. Like, that's money that I don't care to have.
Totally
And
agree.
I just, that's insane. And I mean, I guess obviously there's an audience because $3.5 million, that's in nearly 500 million views. That's really disturbing. And wow. And the companies that are paying for ads, or however it works with YouTube, that are funding this, like that are backing these people, you should really think about yourself too, and what are
Mhm.
you doing to contribute to the well-being of this world? So I just went in one fell swoop from ragging on Megan to defending. Just, I mean, you just, Megan or whoever, you just don't do that to people. These hate for profit campaigns are sick, and it really, really disturbs me. So the Royals are back at work after the holidays. We've seen William and Kate a good bit, but I was especially touched by a recent appearance by Camilla at the annual Anne Frank lunch for Holocaust Memorial Day in London last week. She was joined by the 92-year-old stepsister of Anne Frank, Eva Schloss. They lit candles in memory of Holocaust victims and marked the 75th anniversary of the publication of Anne Frank's diary. Camilla said in part, I first read Anne Frank's diary when I was in my teens. The freshness and vitality of her writing drew me into what I felt was friendship with her. But Anne's story is one of 6 million stories that need to be told, heard, and remembered to honor those lives that were lost and to warn us of the consequences of extreme hatred. Let us not be bystanders to any kind of injustice or prejudice. Let us learn from those who bore witness to the horrors of the Holocaust and of all subsequent genocides, and commit ourselves to keeping their stories alive so that each new generation will be ready to tackle hatred in any of its terrible forms. I appreciate Camilla tackling issues that are tough, like really tough. This isn't the first time she's done this. So, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's really important not to erase history, and keep those stories alive so we can bring awareness to, persecution Jews faced during the Holocaust, as well as other groups throughout history. I think maintaining that awareness is super important. And what is that other saying? If you um, forget history, you're bound to repeat it. I think that was really great of Camilla to do that work and bring awareness to that event. So good job.
And we've got a royal tour to look forward to. William is headed to Dubai on February 10th. It's his first official visit to the UAE. He, while there, will highlight Earthshot and United for Wildlife. And UAE, by the way, is on my top 10 travel list, Dubai and Abu Dhabi specifically. So
Yes, I hear that it's a really cool place. I am looking forward to photos from his trip. And I was going to ask you, are you familiar with United for Life for Wildlife?
I'm not major, not as much as Earthshot. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm not either. So we'll have to look into that organization a little more. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. By the way, quick aside, we learned this week via pronoun exchange by Kate that their new dog is a girl. So there's that information for those that may have been wondering. Still no name though. And of course, Lupo is a boy. So it's a new dog and a little girl. And I thought that was cute. So under normal circumstances, the Queen would be at Sandringham right now already, having spent the Christmas season there. She typically stays until February 6th to honor her father's death at Sandringham and her becoming queen. Well, we learned over the weekend that Her Majesty flew out to Sandringham by helicopter on Sunday, where she will presumably stay until February 6th, which also marks 70 years on the throne. I think it's so good she gets to keep the tradition. Although I have to tell you, the royals and helicopters are kind of freaking me out a little bit about after we talked about the Cambridges in the helicopter the other week. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I'm sure she's as safe as can be, and she's out there marking tradition.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really glad she got to be there and just really excited for this year for her.
Yeah, I hope that, we've put Andrew behind us for a moment, at least until September, and can focus from now, or at least February 6th onwards, on her because she deserves it. 70 years, February 6th. That is amazing. So let's move quickly into segment two, Royals Around the World. We have a couple of items from around the world. So Norway's Princess Martha Louise opened up alongside former Princess of Luxembourg, Tessie Anthony de Nassau, on the Zoom O'Clock podcast recently, talking about the death of her ex-husband and father of her three children, Ari Bain, by suicide on Christmas Day 2019. She said, in part, I think it's so important that whatever we go through as human beings, and we all go through so many different things, and sorrow is something we all have to meet at a certain point in life. Unfortunately, my kids met it at a very young age, but we all go through it at some point, and I think it's really important the lessons we all learn from that you can't go around it. You have to go through it. It's like having tunnel vision because it does cover everything. You can get stuck in that sorrow and you can go into a pit of depression, which I did, and you can get out of it as well. So I appreciate her ending on that moment of hope. And recent addition, some upsetting news out of Spain. Princess Cristina, who is the younger sister of King Philippe, is separating from her husband Inaki Erdogan after 24 years of marriage and 4 children. He was photographed holding hands with another woman. The couple said in a statement, by mutual agreement, we have decided to break off our marriage. Our commitment to our children remains intact. Since this is a private decision, we ask the utmost respect of all those around us. So thinking of them during this time. So anything else before we go into this amazing interview with Penny Junor?
Yeah, I've got a fun little segment I'll add in here right at the end. So I'm calling this my fashion fave of the week. I saw online that Queen Letizia of Spain was spotted out. So she actually attended the International Tourism Fair last week. And she had a great awesome outfit on. And apparently it really turned a lot of heads. So for any of our listeners wanting some fashion inspiration, she was rocking this like kind of a white ivory colored turtleneck sweater, black leather leggings, black tall pumps, and a black and white checkered knee-length coat. And she looked great. It was quite the power outfit. Really, really fun. So I encourage listeners to go look up Queen Letizia's recent outfit. I know we've talked a lot about skinny jeans not being in style anymore, but apparently leather leggings are still in style. So let's keep rocking those, I guess.
One of my favorites. She's so beautiful.
Yeah, she really is. So that's all I've got for me.
Love it. Well, as we quickly approach Her Majesty's 70-year anniversary on the throne, we want to keep her around for another 70 more, but someday, hopefully in the far distant future, Charles will be king. We spoke with his biographer and royal expert, Penny Junor, about what that might be like. Here's our conversation.
What an honor it is to have Penny Junor on the show to chat with us about Charles as king. Penny is a legendary journalist and author, an expert on the royal family and Charles in particular. She's been his biographer twice in 1987 and 1998, and has also written about Princess Diana and the two as a couple. To round it out, she's also published biographies on William and Harry, so she's covered the gamut, and we are thrilled to speak with her today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So, Penny, Charles has been preparing for his role as king for over 73 years. If he's fortunate, he might get to do the job for maybe 30 years. I don't think for one moment he would abdicate the throne and pass it along to William, but the public sometimes goes through periods of outcry where they call for that. Do you think there's any chance that could possibly happen?
I think there's very, very, very little chance that it would happen. Constitutional monarchy, I mean, our monarchy is based on heredity. And if you start deciding that you should abdicate for somebody else, then you lose the logic, I think, of keeping it within the family. You know, I think that it is it's inconceivable, really, that he would pass it along. And he, as you say, he has been preparing for a very long time. You know, he will be the best prepared monarch that this country has ever had. The only way, the only circumstance in which I could see a change to that is if at the time of the Queen's death, he was, for whatever reason, so unpopular that the public really didn't want him. But I think that is very, very, very unlikely.
I always find it so difficult that a monarch's life calling begins at the moment a parent's life ends. You know, Charles was understandably emotional losing his father this past year. And I just wonder, you know, how will he handle the emotions that will inevitably come when he's thrust into this top job?
Well, I think, this is a moment that he's been dreading all his life, really. Because his achieving the top job, the job that he's been training for and preparing for all these years, does inevitably mean the death of his mother. And he loves his mother very dearly. So it's going to be a very bittersweet moment. And I think that, I'm sure that he is pretty terrified about the whole prospect. He's a very emotional man, a very sensitive man. He did take the death of his father very, very badly. Well, he takes the death of any loved one to heart, and I think it will be as devastating for him as it is for anyone who loses a much loved mother.
I have wondered this, Penny. Do you believe his regnal name will be Charles III, or will he, like his grandfather before him, go a different route and choose a different name?
I think he will stick with Charles. I could be wrong, but I think that he is so well known. He has been around for 73 years. He has been Prince of Wales for much of that time. He's known around the world as Charles. And I think it would be very odd if at the age of 73 or 4 or 5 or whenever the Queen dies, that he should change that name.
Charles has been saying for a long time that he plans to slim down the monarchy. And on this show, we've talked many times about, our belief that a lot could change when he's on the throne. So from your research, how do you expect a monarchy under Charles' reign will look?
I think it will be a slimmed down version of the monarchy. I think we saw the way it was headed at the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, when the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, was in hospital, so he wasn't on the balcony. But on the balcony, in the final sort of closing ceremony, there was the Queen, Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, and Harry. Meghan was not yet in the picture. But I think, that was the first time, really, that we had seen the balcony at Buckingham Palace without the hordes of relatives that are usually there. For all the other occasions, for weddings, for tripping the colour, that balcony is pretty full with people of all ages. There on that day, there would, as I say, just this core central few people. And those are the few people that I think definitely the Prince of Wales, but I think the Queen was absolutely agreeing with him, would be the future. So all the peripheral members would go about their normal lives, maybe do some charitable work. But the real problem is that the monarchy is fundamentally very popular in Britain. But there are rumblings just about every year. The media goes on about how much the monarchy costs us. And in real terms, it costs us very little per person per year. But the sum looked at, overall is a huge amount of money. And the media will then be sort of, it arouses people's feelings and sentiments against the monarchy. It makes people think, why are these people paid so much? What are they doing for their money? This is outdated, and it's time we had something more in tune with the times. So I think that it's perception as much as anything else. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of those members of the family do very good work with in charitable areas. And with a slimmed down monarchy, it means that there will be fewer people to spread around the thousands of charities that rely upon the royal family for income and for profile.
One person we know will be there will be Camilla. How will she fit into the picture? Do you think she'll be a full queen consort despite her unpopularity in some circles, even to the present day?
I think that Camilla will definitely be in the picture. I mean, she'll be loom very large in the picture. I think she is crucial to the Prince of Wales's happiness and his confidence. He grew up a very unconfident man. He married a wife who didn't boost his confidence for all sorts of reasons, too numerous to go into here. But, you know, we all know the marriage was not a success. And it was only when Camilla came into his life again, after his marriage had broken down, that he began to get some sort of feeling of confidence, personal confidence. And that was inspired by Camilla, because she supports him in a way that nobody else ever has done, with the possible exception of his grandmother. So Camilla is hugely important to Charles and to the success of Charles, both as a Prince of Wales and I'm sure as king. I have a suspicion that she will be called Queen, because, I mean, I think Charles would find it very humiliating for her to call her anything else. He is hugely proud of her, hugely grateful to her for all that she sacrificed to be with him. And so I think that although Clarence House has always protested and said that no, she will be princess consort, I think actually come the day she will be queen. And I think that we saw the Queen herself condoning that in an unspoken way just a couple of weeks ago when she made her a member of the Garter. That was the highest level of honor that she could have bestowed on Camilla, and I think it's it was a gratitude for her hard work, for her discretion, for her loyalty, and I think recognizing that she's a very, very valuable member of the family.
So there was some buzz about Prince Edward not being named Duke of Edinburgh when Charles becomes king. What do you think of this, given it was understood a few decades ago even that the future of the title was in Edward's hands?
I frankly am at a loss to understand why Charles didn't let Edward become Duke of Edinburgh. It was something that Edward was expecting, and as you quite rightly say, you know, I believe that the Duke of Edinburgh told him the title would be his long, long ago. I don't know the answer. It may be that because the Duke, you know, very often these titles are, I mean, like the Duke of Sussex and the Duke of Cambridge, they are old titles that nobody associates with an individual anymore, because the titles have been in abeyance for a while. The Duke of Edinburgh, everybody knew him. He was around for a very, very long time. And maybe Charles just felt that it was too soon to pass that name on to somebody else. But I'm afraid I don't have the answer.
Let's talk about Charles as a leader for a moment. So he has recently had a snafu with the Princess Foundation and Michael Fawcett. Leaders aren't perfect. We know this, but how will Charles be as a leader? We know he is a workhorse, according to Camilla.
He certainly is a workhorse. He works phenomenally hard. I mean, I've followed him over many years, and I've witnessed that myself. You know, if he goes on a foreign tour, he won't stop for a cup of coffee. He won't stop for lunch. He will work from the early morning till late in the evening, and he will fit in as many meetings and events and as he possibly can, and he does that on a daily basis. He even writes, as we know, he writes memos on Christmas Eve. I mean, on Christmas Day, he's never stops. He's constantly phoning people and with new ideas and instructions, and and trying to bring people together. So he never stops. I think because he never stops, he doesn't necessarily look at the fine detail. And what infuriates him are people who say, "Oh no, don't think we can do that, sir. That's a bit tricky." What he likes are people who say, "Yes, sir, of course, I will see to it." And then he relies upon those people to see to it. So and that I think is exactly what happened with Michael Fawcett. Michael has been with the Prince for decades, and they know one another very well. And Michael knows exactly what the Prince likes. He knows what he wants, and he can interpret everything the Prince asks of him. And I think that he then, having put tasks into Michael's hands, the Prince then takes his eye off the whole thing. And it gets done, and that's fine. And he doesn't ask how it was done. So in terms of leadership, I mean, he's a sort of man to inspire huge loyalty, I would say. So I would say that he is a leader. But I think that he trips up when he doesn't look at the fine detail. But maybe that's in common with many leaders.
What initiatives will be important to him? We both assume the environment will be a big one.
I think the environment definitely will be big. I mean, he spreads his interest over so many different areas, but the environment sort of just about covers everything, actually. He's interested in the built environment. He's interested in urban regeneration, in the countryside, in global conservation, in animal conservation, and in the sea. I mean, clearly the environment is the future. The safety of the planet rests with how we handle the environment. So, I think he will keep an interest in everything that he's shown an interest already, I think. But he won't be so vocal about it.
I'm so interested to hear your perspective on this. We recently saw Barbados end their relationship with the Queen as head of state. After her reign ends, can we expect the same from other countries that still have Her Majesty as head of state? I know Australia in particular has mentioned that this might be on the table.
I think Australia has been talking about independence for a very long time. Yes, I think it's perfectly on the cards that there are countries who might choose the moment of a change of reign to step away. And I think, I don't think that Charles would take that personally. I think it's a perfectly logical thing to do, and possibly having realms that are thousands of miles away makes little sense in this day and age. But equally, I suspect there are others that quite like being attached to the British monarchy. But we shall have to wait and see. But I'm sure that those that would break away, I mean, they might very well have hung on out of respect to Queen Elizabeth.
Well, there's no doubt that Charles is overprepared for this role, as you mentioned earlier. But what do you believe his biggest challenge will be as king?
I think Charles's biggest challenge will probably be popularity. and following in the footsteps of his mother, who has been so universally loved and admired. Charles has been a much more controversial figure. And, not surprisingly, because he's had all these years, decades, waiting in the wings, whereas the Queen never had that. She became Queen in her 20s. So he is a much more controversial figure. And if if you speak your mind on any issue, you will divide people. And he has been quite a divisive figure in Britain. He's also never been forgiven by some people for the failure of his marriage to Diana. So and then of course we have, the Netflix series, The Crown, telling his story in a way that I would say is completely dishonest and wrong. But of course, it's drama. So I can't beef about it, but I think that an awful lot of people around the world will view The Crown as being historical and factual. So he will have his work cut out to convince people that he is the right man for the crown. I mean, I absolutely firmly, after 40 years of studying this man, believe that he is. I think he will be a great king.
His mother's legacy, as you said, casts a long shadow. How will he overcome that?
Well, I don't think it'll be difficult to overcome that. I mean, the reign comes to an end. It's like changes of president or prime minister. You get some really, really good ones, and then you get a change. But I think the people change with the circumstances. And I also think that people, once they have the title, that brings with it a kind of new authority. So I don't think it will be that hard. I think once he has been declared king, and once he has taken his vows, I think we will, as a country, as a world, he will be monarch, and he will plough his own furrow, probably slightly differently from the Queen, but I doubt whether it will be revolutionary.
So we have one last question for you. What do you think will be the best qualities Charles will bring to this role?
I think he has great humanity. And I think that he has a huge understanding. He may live in a very grand house, and he may fly around in helicopters and drive smart cars, but he knows more, I think, about how ordinary people live and their problems than most politicians. So, and I think that I think he has great humanity, great empathy, and great ideas. He's a what's the word? He's an agent for change, I think, for change for the good. He has made huge. I mean, the country, if not the world, I think, should be very grateful to him for so many things that he has done during the decades, so many issues that he has brought to the world's attention that at the time seemed crackpot. His concern for the environment when he was first concerned, everybody thought he was mad. They wrote him off as an eccentric. All the things that he first started banging on about decades and decades ago are now absolutely mainstream. And without Charles, I don't know whether we would be taking it all quite as seriously as we are.
So So I still can't believe we had Penny Junor on the show. Like, that's like such a starstruck moment for me. Unbelievable.
I know. She was so great to speak to, very kind to do the interview with us, and I really, really enjoyed it.
I mean, gosh, what an honor it is to have such an esteemed guest on our show. Thank you for coming on and for sharing your insight, Penny. And now for the rest of the year, we'll celebrate the Queen's big milestone. It's Platinum Jubilee time. By the time we have our next episode, it will be 70 years official. So, anything else before we wrap up? What a good episode. That's what happens again when we take 2 weeks off.
Yep. No, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Well, as ever, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, listeners, at Podcast Royal. Email us if you have anything to say at hellopodcastroyal@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow, rate, and review our podcast. We love those 5 stars. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 53 of Podcast Royal. Bye.
Bye.